right? So was it the heart disease or was it the anti-inflammatories? And then they found out a whole bunch of people who did use anti-inflammatories did completely fine. So now you don't hear that anymore. So this is a novel virus, so a lot of these things are coming up. There is what they say, like I said, an observational study or an observation that type A blood type tend to do worse than others in COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that type O would be the best, but again, I was just curious how accurate that really is.
Yeah, we don't have enough data. It's 6 months. We really don't have enough data for something that's constantly evolving. It wouldn't surprise me that in the next 2-3 months, we get a new strain. Wouldn't surprise me at all, because it already...
And how does that change so the treatment changes for that too? Because I've read that there's like 8 strains now.
Yeah, so what they're doing is, in America, the vaccine that they're trying to create is they're taking the genome, they're taking the RNA of the virus and putting it into your cell, and your cell can then reproduce antibodies against that RNA virus, and then that's how you create the vaccine, right? The problem with that is RNA viruses, unlike DNA viruses, a DNA virus, when it replicates, and there's always a mistake, right? There's a typo in the transcription. It has the mechanism to correct it. So mutations are rare, and RNA virus does not have that. So mutations are, if that's an error during replication, you get a new strain. So that's why there's 2 vaccines going on. One is actually getting like the measles vaccine and mutating the measles vaccine to create a corona vaccine, which will be easier to mass produce. And then in America, they're using the RNA of that particular strain to create immunity to that. So we don't know. We're saying 18 months, but that's only if every step goes according to exactly predicted models. If any one of those break, you're starting from scratch.
But Dave, the thing that's really like what I noticed about this, we all saw it, right? It's attacking old people. And what bothered me about that is that the flu is an equal opportunity killer. It kills at both ends of the age spectrum. It kills the very young, it kills the very old, but COVID's just not really, there are bell curve situations, but it's not typically going after the young. It's only going after the old.
No.
And so then what we then start seeing out of Italy, and this is a scientific advisor to the health minister of Italy said this yesterday, that they have found that actually only 12% of the mortality they're reporting is completely COVID. That every other case had 1, 2, or 3 other advanced diseases in place. Right. And the diseases they're talking about are type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, inflammation, autoimmune disease, obesity. And so then, that's coming out. And of course, now what's happening in the American statistics is the hospitalization rate among the young is much higher in America than it was in Italy, because on the average, Americans aren't as healthy as people that live in the Mediterranean. So there's a lot more type 2 diabetes, for example, in the young, and that's incredibly dangerous, apparently. And then as I've been formulating this and writing about it, just today, a doctor from the front lines in Louisiana, which is, by the way, the diabetes capital of America, said that diabetes is the single most common secondary trait that they're finding among the people that die from this disease.
Wow. Yeah. Both types?
Well, both types, unfortunately, I hate to pick on the type 1s. They can't do anything about it, but the type 2s could turn this around in weeks if they understood how important it was.
Yeah.
Here's it's not, Eric's right partially, but it's not just, when you look at that people who have diabetes as a complication, if you look at what they say is, if you're over age 65, if you have comorbidities, autoimmune disease, heart disease, kidney disease, then they say diabetes. What they're meaning is it's diabetes with complications. If you just have diabetes, you tend to be okay with this. But if you have diabetes with obesity and hypertension, metabolic syndrome, if you have diabetes with peripheral neuropathy, diabetes with heart disease, diabetes then becomes a really big deal, on its own.
The data will be fascinating, because one of the studies that I was reading about yesterday was saying that it's not simply a matter of diabetes, it's a matter of having excess blood sugar. So even somebody who's not diabetic, who just drank a Coke, and
Correct.
slam themselves with
Correct.
blood sugar creates an environment to achieve a faster viral load. So it's not that sugar itself is the problem. So
correct. It's hyperglycemia. So that's why people who use like autoimmune disease, it's not autoimmune disease that's part of the problem. Autoimmune diseases are managed by steroids, long-term steroid use, asthma uses steroids, and they predispose you to hyperglycemia. And hyperglycemia does two things. It stuns the immune cells. So there's a cell called the natural killer cell, goes to sleep, it kind of gets to go to like sugar coma. It doesn't work as well. And you have insulin surges, which are pro-inflammatory, and that is a disaster. That is an absolute disaster. So,
And that's mapped right back to simple sugars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I mean, if ever there was an argument for being a little on the keto side, this is a good time for keto.
Yeah.
Actually,
keto carnivore.
Talking about ketosis, like actually consuming essential fatty acids right now, omega-3 fatty acids. If you end up with COVID and I put you in the intensive care unit, the intensivist now will treat you with supplemental omega-3s. Because what happens is by the time you end up in the intensive care, you are having what we call a hyper-inflammatory state. You're not just inflamed. The problem is you've gone so far the other side. You've mounted such a strong response, it's destroying the body, okay? And to counterbalance that, they use omega-3s. So actually people in ketosis right now will probably do themselves a favor.
And here's the irony. Let's be in hospitals across America, somebody checks in, they're going to be in a few days. What do we start feeding them?
Yeah.
I mean, I hate saying this, but what do we start feeding them?
Yeah.
Jello, ice cream, and garbage. And the very, very things that would be absolutely detrimental to their healing. It's a biggest irony in the world.
Yeah.
But orally ingesting the omega-3, would that be enough though to counteract if you're at that level?
If you are at that level, no. You need super, like very high doses. You're talking grams.
Yeah.
Because the body is literally it's exploding. It's on fire. When you see these people, it's pretty scary.
Man, this is
it's a whole different call. What's this webinar?
Yeah. This was not what this
I mean,
podcast is about.
And then he ended up opening this whole can of worms.
Well, but I mean, mapping this back to the simple sugars, right? Is God Almighty! It's
Dave, for the first
poison.
time in modern history, the consequences of eating the standard American diet are immediate. The reality is that for most of us, the most immediate symptom we might have is a sugar crash or a small cold, or we put on a little bit of weight, but we put it on so slowly that we don't know how we got fat one day.
Yeah.
The consequences of our decisions used to be so long-term that it was easy to go, this makes me feel good now at whatever cost in the future. The consequence today is immediate. And I think for the first time ever, people are going to have a real wake-up call that it's time to fix some stuff. And the data that will come out, which we don't even have yet. We only have anecdotal, this doctor saying there's a lot of diabetics over here, and this doctor saying that obese people really struggle with it. It's all anecdotal. But when people go into the statistics, when this is all said and done, I think we're going to find that this disease was never ageist. It was healthist. And it went after the people who were unfortunately sick, not of their own accord, and also the people who are sick because of the consistent lifestyle decisions they've been making. And that, by the way, is not even their fault. That's the fault of a misguided governmental regulation system that was bought and paid for by a fundamentally evil food production system.
100%. That and a balance of, there is some sort of responsibility as a grown adult, though, to start to educate yourself, right, on.
Dave, you know what you're competing against? I agree with you. You could say that, but here's the thing. I don't know how much of a turnaround you had to go through to get to the shape you're in, but you're in pretty damn good shape. You either had good genetics and or good willpower and or this and or that. There are people out there that the food industry, let me tell you something. When Coca-Cola goes out and they buy every bit of CCTV footage of random acts of kindness, and then they make the most incredible viral video to make you feel good, they're doing that because of Pavlov's dogs. They're doing it because they understand base psychology, that if they can make you watch this video and raise up all of your feel-good chemicals, produce tons of dopamine and oxytocin from watching people do random acts of kindness, and then boom, Coca-Cola. That is the most manipulative and disgusting control of your decision process. And so, no, it isn't your fault. If somebody's really fat right now, if somebody's diabetic and somebody goes, well, it's your own fault, you could have eaten less and moved more, they're not understanding the billions of dollars that went into manipulating their biology and their psychology to get them that way. So now it's time for people. It's not their fault, but it is, where you're right. It's not their fault, but it is now their responsibility.
You know what? Perfect. That's the perfect way to put it. The way I see it. That's the perfect way to put it. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, has been an agenda for a very long time. And then the other thing with the simple carbs, right? So people think Coca-Cola, they think Reese's peanut butter cup, but a lot of people don't think white flour, right? They don't think the white bread. They don't think the white pasta, the white rice.
I'm just gonna get my phone charger. Give me 1 second.
They don't think it, because one of the best things in the world to do if you want to get people to lose control over what they're buying is to confuse them. And so, one study says bread's good, another one says bad. Now you've got meat's bad, and now you got the meat are bad people, and now you got the people that meat is the only thing you got to eat people. And there's this massive cognitive dissonance. And what that means is that the more confused people are, then the more they just give in to the programming, the more they just give in to there are people who just can't make their way through Easter without eating chocolate. And on some level, they think it's like it proves that they're following Easter correctly. Listen, I joke about this all the time, Dave, but I went to an Anglican school, and I remember reading the Bible, and I remember when Jesus was born. I remember what happened. There was the whole pregnancy, a little mystery around how that took place, if you remember the story. And then there's Jesus, and he's born in the manger, right? And there's all the animals around. And then the three wise men come, and they bring frankincense, myrrh, and gold. Not one of them brought pumpkin pie or candy canes. None of them brought that. But we are so tied in now that we have to have that stuff because the decision's been removed. And then, of course, you might have read that book too. The sequel. It was made by Mel Gibson. The sequel of that book. Jesus, and then they put him up on the cross, and I remember there being, they where was the chocolate? Wait, was it the Easter bunny that hammered him? But the point is, we've been so conditioned at this point that there are people out there that cannot experience Easter without eating chocolate. Even people that are diabetic and absolutely know that they shouldn't be, because their will has been removed. And again, that's where we arrive at the point is it's not their fault, but today it's now their responsibility. It's a great way to put it. And you tie in cultures, right? I grew up in a very Italian heavy culture my whole life. So it was meal after meal after meal after meal. So man, great. This is great stuff. Appreciate that. So we are recording this, so we will chop some of this up and get it out there. But what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do, Eric, is I'll introduce you and then give you the microphone and give us a little. Officially starting the podcast now? Yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't want to lead this subject today because this is, we have some awesome people on here that, Dave, honestly, let's do the podcast. And then, but in the podcast, in the introduction, you can allude to the green room conversation. And what you do is do it like an outtakes. Okay. Add it at the end. Okay. Yeah. This is what we talked about behind the scenes, and that might be a fun way for people to consume it. Let's do that. Let's do that. So, guys, welcome to another episode of Brand Builder TV. So glad you're here. This is a really special episode for us. First time we've had multiple guests on. Number one, thank God for Zoom. Give us the opportunity to do this. And Eric Mendez. He's third time he's been on. Let me share with you how I found Eric. I found Eric through YouTube and through his teachings on how to share stories from stage. And I've been on quite a few stages myself, but I've also saw a lot of professionals speak, and he blew me away. He absolutely blew me away. And from his presence, from his story sharing from stage, but also from some of the things that he taught in the real world. I know that real quick, Eric, I'm going to share with the audience that you actually traveled the world
I don't know how long, I believe a few years with Anthony Robbins and, share the stage with him quite a bit. But if you want some insight behind that black curtain on things like the importance of your voice and how to train yourself to share a story that keeps people's attention, little things like that, check him out on YouTube, man. You will not regret it. And what I love about it too is the first time we had him on, his energy matched what I was hoping. So I love it, man. Love it. So there you go, Eric. Give us a little introduction on the guests, because they're, your contacts, and I'm honored to be here. And I'm just going to start asking questions like crazy once we get going.
Dave, thanks for having me back. I'll tell you, it's a milestone for me as well. I rarely do the same podcast twice, let alone the third time around. There are a lot of audiences out there I want to reach, but our first 2 times together were just so fun. And when I spoke to you about this big Bushman trip that we did, which I'll talk about in a minute, and we had the idea of bringing the boys together to talk about it, I was just really excited about the idea. So I'm really glad we're here. For everybody who's listening, watching, I have for over 10 years now been visiting East Africa to hang out with the Hadza Bushmen. They're hunter-gatherer nomadic people, among the last left in the world, that live a truly traditional human lifestyle. While we can't romanticize it and suggest that they live exactly the way our ancestors did, we can certainly bet that the way they live is a lot closer to the way our ancestors did than the way we live today. And so last year, I, for the first time, decided to take a bunch of people with me. And so I took a bunch of people with me, and 2 of the people that came were very, very good friends of mine. And after that trip, I was on a plane leaving, and I walked up to one of the good friends I'm about to introduce you, and I said, you had a nice trip. You had your 1-day visit with the Bushmen, but I stayed a week once. I challenge you. I challenge you to come and stay with me for a full week. And of course, because he had no idea what he was agreeing to, he said yes. So the first guest that I want to introduce to you is Ara. And Ara, it's so funny. I consider you one of my most important friends in the world. And I'm going to say your last name for the first time I've ever even tried, but Suppiah?
Suppiah. It's like papaya.
Suppiah. So, Suppiah. I just think of you as Dr. Ara on call. That's all I need to know, right?
That's all you need to
So,
know.
I know Ara because I was doing some work with Robin Sharma up in Toronto, and Ara and I met while I was there. And Ara's a doctor. He's also a surgeon, and he's also a sports physician, working with some of the very top athletes in the world, and is also I suppose best way to put it is a medical and fitness commentator on the Golf Channel for NBC.
Oh, wow.
And Ara and I just hit it off, and I made the challenge to him, let's go do this Africa trip. Then all of a sudden it dawned on me that it just wouldn't be right without Vaughn. I just knew that it wouldn't be right. So let me introduce Vaughn, because then I'm like, I got to call Vaughn. But I know what I should do is I should call Ara first and vet the idea, because I shouldn't really be inviting somebody without talking to Ara first. But I just did it anyway. So I call Vaughn. I go, Vaughn, you got to do that. I'm challenging you. I feel a bit bad because I haven't checked with Ara. And Vaughn goes, well, Ara's here in LA with me right now. so it worked out perfectly. Now, Vaughn is a phenomenal guy, like me. Actually, Ara, where were you born?
Malaysia.
We're all immigrants, man. We're all immigrants. I was born in Africa, immigrated to Canada, and now to complete our trio of immigration, Vaughn, Armenia, right? Moved to America and has just done phenomenal things since he's been there. Has an incredible law firm that's now been, I think you've been Inc. 5000 like 2 years in a row.
Yeah, we're going into the 3rd year.
Third year in a row. And one of the things I really liked about Vaughn from the beginning is his unbelievable generosity of spirit, and that almost every single employee that works for him has always worked for him, and that he's grown his law firm to that size, not by adding on lots of clients, but by helping his clients to grow, because at heart, he's a phenomenal entrepreneur. So these 2 guys are solid men, and we went off to Africa together, and we're here to share the story.
Man, let's jump right in. I'm excited because the last episode with Eric, I'm like, as he's talking, I'm like, I got another question. Something else hit me. And really for me and our audience, it's so much of what you just your actual experience, right? Your feelings going through this. And in the second episode, I had no idea the things that Eric had to go through in that week physically himself. Yeah.
It is not an exaggeration. It is not an exaggeration to say that Ara quite literally saved my life. Like it's not an exaggeration. It might be it might not be quite as serious as that, but I stick to what it is. That was an eventful week.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even expecting that. So when he said, let me get some of those guys on, I said, let's do this. So let's just start with Ara. Give us a little background. Like, what made you do this? I know that he said, I dare you, but share with us your experience. Just jump in.
Well, listen. So I met Eric, and he told me about this whole. He presented at the event I was at, and I heard about the Hadza, and I was like, man. I was thinking to myself, listening to him, I was like, man, I would love to go there. So then I went. Eric and I connected and met his whole team. They were all awesome people, and we shared something in common. I am very passionate about combating childhood obesity. It's what I want my legacy to be part of, and I'm strategic about who I want help to do that, because you can't do that on your own. And so I spoke to Eric, and he was on board. And then we kind of kept in touch. He came to Orlando, visited me, blah, blah. And I kind of said to him, Eric, you should do this trip again. You should do this trip again and make it happen. Then randomly, as Eric does, randomly he calls me and he goes, okay, listen, there's a possibility I might be going, and it's like in 2 months, but I'll let you know. So I said, okay. Week later, he calls me up. He goes, okay, it's like 90% I'm going to go. Are you in? I was like, 100%. I'll drop whatever I want, like whatever you need me to do, I'll be there. And then that became, I take the coaches and it became a bigger group. And in that time, I was thinking, well, I'm going to go there. I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. If I'm going to go there, I might as well climb Kilimanjaro. So then Eric's team contacted me and go, hey, you still climbing Kilimanjaro? And I was like, yeah. And they go, well, we've got this guy called Vahan, and he would like to climb Kilimanjaro. So I literally meet
Wait. I got to interrupt. I got to interrupt just 1 second. First, he asked me to climb Kilimanjaro with him, and I had been clear. I have done it 7 times. I have never doing it. He goes, oh, come on, just one more time. Not happening. So then he called the team, and now you pick it up again.
Yeah. So the team, they were awesome. They gave me who did Eric go with? So they put me in touch with the team. So I booked my trip, and then literally, I think it was 2 weeks before we take off, they said, this other guy wants to come along. Do you have space? So I called the Kilimanjaro expedition team, and they're like, yeah, we can squeeze one more in. So I literally meet Vahan on the day we're going to start hiking for 5 days. And I never met this guy. And I will tell you, within 5 days, we were like blood brothers. We just had such a great trip. And it was just awesome. So we finished that. We go to the Hadza. We had a great time there. Actually, it was such an amazing thing, but it was so short. It was only a day and a half.
Dave, it was part of in a sense, an orientation trip that I do for our certified wild fit coaches. So The idea was they do a couple days safari. We go to Ngorongoro Crater. It's all quite highly catered. Then we just go and we do a very short visit with the Bushmen just to say hi and kind of see their culture from a distance. So that's what he means. It was quite short compared to what might be coming.
But I was fortunate enough. I managed to convince Eric. I was like, listen, I'm going to spend both my nights there. So I spent 2 nights there, and Dave, it was interesting because as we were leaving, I realized there was so many things that were going on that I couldn't really process all of it. What you see on the outskirts that you think there's so many layers to it. So we're getting on the plane, and Eric comes up and he goes, hey, I dare you, 1 full week, right? So first of all, I'm like, if I'm going to spend a week with Hadza, I'm going to do it with Eric, because just the best chance of surviving. Yes. And then the second thing, I was like, don't dare me. What are you doing daring me? So off I went. That's how it started. And I will tell you, it was awesome. It was exhausting. And it really made me reflect on so many things in life. Even now, when I look at a photograph, it suddenly opens a whole new window that I didn't even think about. It's probably one of my greatest blessings in life.
And so I know you were saying you from the outside, you thought that you were taking everything in, but then you said, you know what? No, there's so much going on behind the scenes. And as you said that, Eric's going, yeah. Give us some examples of what you're talking, what you mean, and what you picked up, and what jumped out at you.
Probably the thing that was closest to my heart on this trip, right, was the chief himself. You know, this was a guy that, when you observe him, he was often the last one to speak. And he often spoke the least. But when he did speak, he was just majestic. He commanded respect. But he commanded respect. I asked him one day through the interpreter, and I said, you know, what do you think, what's the purpose of the chief? What's your role? Because I've asked that of so many leaders here, right? And they say it's to do this and that. You know what he said? To find the next chief.
Wow. That's the ultimate leadership definition, right? It's create more leaders. Wow.
Why?
Wow.
And he said, well, if I don't do that, the tribe will die.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So he's already taken on the role.
Wow.
But in his role, he's so hard, there's no ego, because he's okay to find the next chief and groom them, because he realizes that's his purpose. Wow. And then, like, on so many, even when I tell you now, like, on so many levels, that is so far from where we've come.
Yeah.
We're governed so much by our egos and our titles.
And fear.
Yeah.
And fear. Where's it all really come from? The ego comes from fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of not good enough, the fear of being too weak, right?
But there's a big difference. There's a very big difference, and that is that they deal with real fears. You know, they deal with genuine real fears.
Real danger, right?
Yeah, like they're climbing trees. They're dealing with wild animals. There are other tribes to cope with, and so their adrenals, their entire biochemical system is being triggered by genuine events and genuine dangers. There's never a point in time where they can receive an email that spikes their blood pressure out of adrenaline. Like, they don't have that. And it's really interesting to be there. We were interviewing the chief at one point, and I asked him if they had depression. And I had explained what I meant was long-term sadness, and no, we don't have that. And he went out, and then I asked him, well, I told him that in our world, I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but I told him in our world that we have suicide, that people like kill themselves. And the look on his face of confusion, it's like, what? And then there was a guy in the cave behind him that was sleeping, and he heard the translation that people in our world sometimes kill themselves. And this is a Bushman. He sits up and he belly laughs, because the idea of ending your own life is that crazy to them. They don't even have that in their thought process. So it's really interesting to look at their psychology as opposed to ours.
It's so awesome. What a great example, right? The wherewithal, the wisdom, the knowing that his job, right? My job as the chief is to now keep this going, keep this building. Right. But that's what I meant by the fear is, obviously there's dangers, right? There's major dangers that we would never experience. But I believe that fear psychology, when you're the leader that is afraid to build other leaders, really comes back to a fear within.
Yeah, it's insecurities within.
Yeah, it's the fear within. Great example. I love. How big of a tribe is this?
How many people, Eric? Maybe
there are about 800 HUDs of people left, I believe. About 400 of them still live traditionally, and the other 400 have been somehow integrated into missionaries and so on. And then they have these very gregarious family units that move around and change depending on how good the hunting is. When the hunting is better, the family units can get up to 50 or 60 people. When the hunting isn't so good, the family units shrink down in size and can be as small as 3 or 4. To the chief that I know quite well, I've known him for 10 years. He's an incredibly good hunter. And so he is capable of holding together quite a large family unit. It's difficult to know the size because it's not like they take a census. They don't know when they were born. They don't know how old they are. But the area that we were this time, I would guess that we were talking about 40 or so people. We may only have seen 15 or 20 different people, but there was another kind of area behind where a lot of the women would never even come out to the main camps.
And elderly as well. And
Yeah.
and interesting enough, they refer to their tribe as family. And it was interesting when we're having an interview. There's probably about 4 little kids came up to the chief, sat on his lap, played with him, took little things from him, and he gave and went away. And so when we asked him how many kids he had, he said, I think only 2. And so they treat these kids are like everyone's kids, and everyone plays with everyone, and it seems like that family unit is extended to the whole tribe. And it's really neat to see that.
You know how the saying goes, it takes a village.
Yes.
Like we got to see that firsthand.
Well, it reminds me of an elephant tribe, right? Where the ants take care of the little one almost as much as the mom takes care of the little one, right? And they surround them and make sure that's kind of what jumped out at me. Interesting. Yeah. Vaughn, you're up, man. So what? Give us some good takeaways.
Oh, so many. There's so many lessons. It's interesting how sitting around the fire. So these are nomadic tribes. So they don't have a place that they call it permanently home. So they move around every so often. And so they don't have really like structures where they live, and they sleep around the fire. And so the first night we're around the fire, and there's a separate fire for women and separate fire for men. And so we're around the fire with the men, and you could hear the hyenas laughing and some noises. And, you know, for the first time, I recognized and realized where our need to fit in comes in. Because if for some reason they didn't want us in there and they didn't like us anymore and kicked us out, you're in the danger. And you realize where, you know, it's kind of built in our DNA over thousands of years of wanting to fit in and be liked and be part of the tribe, because that meant survival and safety for us. And it was just amazing just hearing how, even though you didn't understand much of the stories they're telling each other at night, but just that whole storytelling and how these little kids sitting around the fire, listening to the adults speaking, and this is their education. This is how they learn about how to hunt and where to hunt and what not to do. And, you know, the storytelling that you were just at the introduction talking about how Eric is so good at doing. And in fact, the first time I heard about Hadza is hearing Eric on stage talking about it. And this is where my fascination to it came, because I was like, wow, what an amazing world. And I heard so many stories from him. It's like, I need to be there. I need to go there. I need to experience this. And being there, you realize what an important skill that is. And that's a skill that over the years meant survival for a younger generation, because that's how they've learned and got educated from storytelling. And this is what Eric teaches now. And in fact, my public speaking started after taking his public speaking course, which I'm very grateful for.
Thanks for the plug. I'll get you that $5 later.
There you go.
The check's in the mail, right?
Yeah. And another thing I've noticed, that how playful they were, no matter what they were doing, whether they're hunting, dangerous animals, whether they're making their bows and arrows, whether they're cooking, there's always a little laughing. There's always a little music. There's always a little dancing. Like everything was just fun and joyful and playful, even though they're in the middle of this heat and dryness and danger and everything else, and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. Real problems, not our problems, you know?
Right.
And everything is fun and playful, and it's contagious, because we're there and we noticed we're like dancing with them, we're singing with them. It was amazing.
You know, between what you just shared and what Eric shared about the reaction about depression and suicide, my response to the chief is simply this: you won. You won this thing called life, right? You figured out that joy level no matter what. And to me, you won. Wow, that's so, and that's what I got from Eric the second episode, is that feeling, right, of, that gives me the chills. It actually gives me the chills. Like we're over here, right, where we're all at now. We're trying to figure out this thing called life. And I always say life is simple, not always easy, but the simpler you make it, the easier it becomes. And that's my response to what you shared is, man, you won. Now
Dave,
we need to win.
Yes.
But there's a bigger win to be had, and
Okay.
this is why I've been studying them so much.
Okay.
There's a principle that I'm writing about at the moment for a book called the evolution gap. And the evolution gap is, I define it as the gap between our natural evolution and our cultural evolution. So for most of our history, like any organism on Earth, our evolution happened in lockstep with our environmental realities. And so about 30-ish thousand years ago, some of our ancestors figured out that they could manipulate agriculture, that they could actually grow plants at will. And the minute they did that, they started making changes to lifestyle. In fact, they got to a place where food became predictable, and they could have larger populations, and civilization was born as a result of that. But what that meant was we were now evolving not physically, but we were evolving informationally. And so as our information evolution accelerated faster than our physical evolution, we ended up opening this gap that I call the evolution gap. And what that means today is that we have a physiology and a psychology that is actually rather better suited to living in the bush than it is to living in cities. And this is why the suicide rates went up 30% over the last 12 years or so. This is why there's so much depression. This is why so many of our kids are being chemically controlled, because we're living in a life that we don't fully understand, that our DNA doesn't fully understand. And so how do we win? Well, we take a look at, you're exactly right. They're winning. They're not unhappy. When I asked him if they do sadness, he's like, max 3 days. And then you got to get on with it. I mean, I'll tell you, that could, there are a lot of therapists that go to business if we took that idea on board, right? Like, now I'm not saying it's as simple as that, but here's what I would say to you. When they first discovered, captured elephants and put them in zoos and circuses, they would only live 7 to 10 years because they were being treated like a zoo and a circus animal. And eventually they found out that elephants could live 70 years, maybe even 80 in nature. So they started then mimicking their natural lifestyle in the zoo and the circus, because clearly something wasn't right. Feeding them the proper food and giving them enough water and walking them around. And the more they mimicked their natural lifestyle, the longer they lived. And you know what's really crazy? In the end, a zoo elephant will live longer than a wild elephant if it's cared for properly, because we can combine both things. We can combine the natural lifestyle principles that we're learning from these people and the advantages of our incredibly safe civilization. And if we can combine those, we get to win emotionally like they do, and we get to win physically like we can, which means we can live longer, more productively, more happy, and have a much more fulfilling existence than we currently have.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And when I say, my response to the chief is, you guys won. To me, I look at, no matter where you're at in the world, but let's talk about where we're at, whatever we want to do, right? You want to write down whatever your goal is at that moment, maps to one thing. You feel like it's going to make you feel better, whether it's more money, whether it's a relationship, whether it's being on the Forbes 5,000 list, right? It's going to make you feel better. And man, when I hear that story about, they're laughing and joking and connecting and the family time, they're winning on such a major scale. It's so awesome.
Okay, Dave, I got to fuel you here though. You want to get into the dirt. All right. You want to get into dirt. So let me just give you a little
jump.
So I had done this trip with them before. I knew what I was getting into. The last time I had done a week-long stay with them, the chief walked up to me and said, "Are you ready to go hunting?" I said, "Yes." We went hunting. I took my phone with me, not because of signal, but because I could track my steps, track the geolocation. Mm-hmm. We did 27 miles that day, and it was 100 degrees outside. That's more than a marathon. Most people train for that. I didn't know I was doing it. Wow. The next morning, I wake up, and the chief's kicking my feet, and he's like, "Are you ready to go hunting again?" Because we didn't get anything the day before. Now, most people run a marathon, and what do they do after a marathon? They take a week off. And this was not a marathon. I remember when I ran the London Marathon, everybody warned me that the cobblestone streets would be really difficult. I would have prayed for cobblestone streets. Thorns, rocks, cliffs, wild animals. So now he wants me to go again. We do 17 more miles, back-to-back days. So I knew what we were getting into. These guys didn't. And so we got there, but the weirdest thing happened, and I mentioned to you earlier that Ara quite literally saved my life. The day I came out of the bush, I'd been in the bush for a week. I came out of the bush to pick up Ara and Vaughn, and I start getting these stomach pains, really bad stomach pains. Like I can't even sleep. a very good friend of mine makes me promise to go and talk to two of the doctors that we had with us, Dr. Vincent and Dr. Ara. I go see Dr. Ara, and Dr. Ara, I don't normally give him this Dr. Ara title crap, but in this context, I'm giving him the title. He came in, he did the abdominal test on me. He goes, I think you might have appendicitis. Next thing you know, we're at this local field hospital, CT scan.
He doesn't
probably
want to go
we
to the
should cut it
hospital.
out.
He doesn't want to go to the hospital. I'm saying, Eric, you need to go to the hospital. And he's going, no, I think I ate this. I know I have had this.
I can handle it.
I'm not going
It's a little pain.
with you with this. If you don't go to the hospital, I'm not going anywhere right now because it's going to be a disaster. So
Wow.
So when he said, listen, when he said I saved his life, he saved his own life by listening.
Wow.
So anyway, we get to the hospital, and there's luckily an old retired American. I shouldn't say. I mean, he's a youthful guy, but he's a retired American surgeon. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful man. And they look at the CT scans and like, yeah, probably we should cut it out, but we could treat it with antibiotics, or we could cut it out, or we could treat it with antibiotics. So I have to make that call in the end. And in the end, the two of them, the two doctors, are thinking cutting it out is the way to go. And I'm like the last person to cut things. I don't want to have a surgery, but I give in and we go. I lay down on the table. I'm awake from surgery, so I get to watch, which is fascinating. I got to tell you, if you ever have a chance to watch yourself have an abdominal surgery, it's quite an experience. And I'm watching them do the surgery, and I come out of that. But in the meantime, these guys head off to the bush to go start the documentary filming and all that stuff. So the next morning, I get up, I get dressed. I'm ready to go. I had the surgery. I'm ready to go. And I'm walking out into the lobby, and the nurse walks up and she goes, "Sir, visiting hours haven't even started yet." And then I turn around and she goes, "It's you. What are you doing up?" Next thing you know, I'm in the 4x4. I head off to the bush to meet with these guys. But as a consequence, I can't go hunting with them because walking was very painful, let alone running through the bush and crouching and stuff. And we'd made a deal. And the deal was that we would not be eating what we didn't kill or we didn't scavenge.
Wow.
And so these guys headed out on their first hunting trip on their own. And I want you to ask them about this because they'll tell you the fun parts and the cool anthropological things we noticed and how people were fun. But the blood, sweat, and tears that these guys went through and the breaking points, I think, are worth talking about.
Absolutely, 100%. Great.
He had to throw us under the bus, didn't he?
You know what's interesting? Before
I was pulling you under the bus because I was already under there.
One of the interesting things was before going on this trip, my biggest concern was I'm not going to take a shower for a whole week. We get there, the first night we're going to sleep, and you're on the ground, on the dirt, you could hear the wild animals. So that problem wasn't a problem anymore. It's like, I'm not going to get any sleep for the next 7 days. And then the second day hunting, we didn't catch anything. I'm thinking, okay, forget the other problems. I'm not going to eat for the next 7 days. And then the third or fourth day, we're hunting, and we run out of water, and we're probably about 3-4 hours away from the camp, and we're still going, and we're dry. And like, forget about eating. I just need water. It's interesting how, so I've learned that whatever problem I have, I'm very grateful for it because the next one and the worst one.
That is the ultimate, the power of perception, right?
Oh,
food. Oh, man.
Come on.
Come on. Stop being a baby. We're talking about water. Wow.
That's for this. I'll tell you something. This is the part that I didn't realize. Honestly, didn't. So we said we'll only eat whatever they ate. Okay. So we go hunting, whatever they catch, we got to eat that. So we're thinking, okay, you know what? They're going to eat wild boar. Be great. Blah, blah, blah. The first day we go, and we don't find anything, and we walk maybe like 9 miles that first day. Okay. And then
they found a dead squirrel looking thing that's been dead for about a day or two. They put him over their belt, brought him back, cooked it, offered it for us. And there's some extra little creatures on top of it too that was kind of garnishing.
So Dave, so listen, so we get that kind of stuff. So I look at my hunt. Eric obviously is not, he's not going to eat. So I said, I can't eat this. And he's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, oh my God. So this now we haven't eaten 24 hours. Next day we get up and the guy goes, okay, you know what? Today we're going to hunt baboon. And I look at Vahan going, baboon? I'm not going to eat baboon? I'm not going to eat again. That's That's not fair. They are eating.
Ara thought they were going to go hunting for cow and pig and chickens, but no, baboon.
Fishing. So it was baboon, and I look at my hand going, wait a minute, this is a bad deal because they eat that and we don't. Like, this is not a good deal. So anyway, we start hiking, and I'm grumpy now. I haven't had coffee. My biggest fear was like coffee. How am I going to get through this without any coffee? So 2 days now, no coffee. We start going. We get to a point. We've probably been walking like 2 hours at this point, and we get to this foot of this hill, and the chief goes, okay, now we go around this big hill, then we go on top, and then we go behind the other hill, and that's where the baboons sleep. And I'm thinking, this guy's lost his mind. So that day we walked like 17 miles, man? How far?
Yeah, about 17, 18 miles. The thing is, though, they're very fast, and they're very miniature in stature. So they go into these little bushes and holes, and every bush has some kind of a spike on it.
The bushes,
thick and strong.
I'm telling you,
it's not easy.
The bushes there are vindictive. Like they are attempting manslaughter. Those bushes.
It's war.
I still have scars on my shoulders and on my back. They'll hold on to your skin. Yeah. And so you're trying to catch up because you can't lose them. If you lose them, we don't know where we are. They're very fast. They will not wait for you, especially if they see something or hear something. They take off. They take off, and you better keep up with them.
Dave, you know when you see like fish is going like this, and then it goes boom. They're like that. You're walking with them, and then all of a sudden they kind of go boom, boom, they disappear. And our biggest fear was like, dude, if we lose them, we're gonna die. No way. No way of getting back. No way, no chance. We'll die.
And it ain't gonna be a quick death.
It will not be a good day. It'll be hunger, dehydration.
I don't know. There's leopards. It could be pretty quick.
Oh. You might want to look for a leopard at that point. Just get it over with. Wow.
It was really tough.
Wow. So at this point, were you 48 hours in without any food?
Yeah, 48 hours with no food.
How long did you go?
How
long did you go?
I broke on day 3. I was like, no, this is not fair. I said, I'm going to eat, like, they're eating and I'm not eating and I'm going to still keep up. So I said, no, game over.
The funny thing was, I went for 6, but what we learned on the day 6 is that they have some food reserves. And while we didn't, they ate what they caught, which we didn't eat because they were like cute little furry animals, or there's animals that were dead for more than 24 hours. But then they had some stashed away food that they'd go away and eat and then come back. And so they were pretty well nourished for and ready to go hunting next day. And we're here sitting here for 3-4 days without any food and half thirsty, tired, not much sleep, scratches everywhere.
See, that's what I say. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, right?
Yes.
I'll take wisdom all day long.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you though, these guys were tough. They were tough as nails. Like I've done this a number of times, and you know, you're talking about a level of athletic output and environmental intensity that's beyond an Ironman. It's tough out there. You are. I mean, I was out there a couple of years ago, and I had a bush almost take my eye out of my head. Like it's dangerous out there. And these guys handled it like pros. Yeah, no kidding. I had there's this one thorn tree there that has these very razor sharp hook thorns. And we were hunting at about 2:00 in the morning, night hunting. And one of it slit me above the eye and embedded a thorn right in the corner, and then embedded another thorn in my eyelid. Wow. And for an hour and a half, I was absolutely convinced I'd completely blinded myself. It was terrifying. I'm just trying to make the point here that I was lucky, by the way, in the end. But the point being is that these guys really were tough as nails. They were facing among one of the hardest weeks you could probably imagine. But in the end, it was like, I don't know. It was just a truly, truly magical experience. And you're lying there and you look up at those stars at night, and it's like you got in a DeLorean, you drove it up to 88 miles an hour, you dialed it back 200,000 years, and you're in the past.
Wow.
It's extremely spiritual. Like you learn a lot about yourself, and just being with them really made me look at life very, very different. Very different.
You're like almost stripped to basic kind of survival and just connection to your environment, to the nature and to the people around you, because you rely on them and they rely on you for safety and survival. And you feel that kind of just basic drive of, I need to survive, I need to get something to eat, I need to get some rest. And it's really something, because when you come back to this world of the one that we live in, you realize how much of extra we have, extra of everything.
Yeah.
Extra of worry, extra of food, extra clothing, extra that we really don't need.
Just all 10x
and just
everywhere we look.
Yeah, and everything's extra.
Yeah, Dave, I'll share a real, I asked this chief, this question. I said, hey, if you knew you had to go for a really long hike, I said, would you like, how we would like have a recovery day, have carb loading, get ready, all this kind of stuff. And so I said, what, how would you prepare for this? And he goes to me, you just get up and go. It was so simple. And it just dawned upon me, like, we have all this made up stuff, pre-workout, during the workout, after recovery shake and all this. No, they just got up. Anyway, so I said to him, what happens if you're tired? Then he goes, well, then I go a bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. It was like so simple. It just no distractions, no unnecessary thought process on all the stuff that doesn't matter,
So I want to know, here's what I want to know, especially from both of you, but let's start with you, because you were talking about, man, the second day I was ornery, I didn't have my coffee. Where did you get to the point where you came to that surrender feeling? Because I think that's the way it's
great question.
That's the ultimate, right?
I know.
Coping.
It's when we got to the hotel and he had hot water again. I've surrendered and blissful. I found it.
No, when it dawned upon me, like it was day 3,
mm-hmm.
and we finished the 3 days, like no food now for 3 days. And I sat there and I got really like pissed off. And I was thinking, I'm not a Hadza. I live in Orlando. I work in a hospital. I wear clothes. I drive a Mercedes. Like, I don't, like, what am I trying to prove here? I'm never going to live like these guys. And that day I kind of just broke. And then I kind of accepted a few things, I'm like, I'm not them. I'm not them. And as beautiful and as majestic as they are, I don't necessarily want to be them. I want to be me. I'm okay being me. I have nothing to prove. And that's where, Eric talks about the gap, the evolution gap. And that's when I realized, I was like, but there are so many good things there, but there are so many wonderful things about where we are. We shouldn't minimize and make small of the beautiful things that we have. One of the things I was thinking, like, wow, I can press a button on my phone, and my mom, who's in Malaysia, thousands of miles away, can see me, and I can see her, and we can talk. That's a beautiful thing. Why give that up? Mm-hmm. And that's the day 3. And then I came to peace, and I still didn't have coffee, but I ate.
Right. But it became okay.
Yeah, it became okay.
It became okay. And that's what I'm really curious about, for both of you guys. And Vaughn, did you get to that point where you, for lack of a better term, surrendered?
That guy.
What amazed me is our ability to adjust to a new environment so quickly, where it felt like it was a normal thing and this is our life suddenly. Just like with this whole COVID thing now, it's like this is our life now, and this is how we work, and this is how we shop, and this is how we communicate. Talking about this is what's gonna look like, and this is what we're gonna do seemed very wild and not out of this world. And like Eric said, like traveling in time. 2 days later, we're there, we're waking up, we're on their schedule. We're like, okay, time to go hunting. And it was amazing how we, as human beings, I guess it's in our DNA to just adapt and adjust and kind of just, I guess it's a survival thing. So very quickly, it felt like this is our routine for the next 7 days. Now it gets, you know, I didn't eat for 6 days. So you get cranky, you get tired, you get lightheaded, you get nauseous, you know, and then you're not hungry anymore. And then you're hungry, you know, you go through all this stuff. And it was interesting. One thing I really appreciate while we were there is you're very much in the present almost all the time. You're not worried about what's going to happen when I get back or what's going to happen tomorrow, what happened yesterday. Because every minute is like, if you're not present, it's probably, you know, something will happen and you'll lose them if you're hunting, or something will attack you. So that being present was a really great lesson that I brought back, and I try to stay as much as I can in the now, because you know, it's easy in our lives to kind of just worry about tomorrow and think about how it was yesterday before the COVID, how life was, and everything else. It's all about just being present and just being there and being aware, and you know, scanning your horizon for any moving animals or anything else. So
just ones in front of your eyes.
Yeah. For me, interesting enough, the bushes were, I think, the most challenging thing. Just running, because they would go in and they know how to get through the bushes. They'll see a little opening and they'll just slide through it and they'll come out from the other side. And you know that's the only way to go through. And you know you're just about to get scratched up and your skin's about to get caught in there, and it would hurt. But if you don't go, then you lose them. And so knowing, just going in there, after like second day, third day, those bushes were like, just, you know, I don't want to eat. I won't drink. I won't sleep. Just, I don't want to see another bush. And I still have scars on my arms.
I mean,
and somehow I would get caught in them more than Ara or Eric. I think Eric in 10 years has kind of learned how to navigate. We're about the same size, all three of us. But
no, we know you're so much bigger.
My God, those bushes.
Well,
I still have PTSD on those.
Well, Eric, you weren't able to go on the hunts, but did you just move with the tribe and then settle in?
I would stay in camp. For the first, I think it was 3 days or 4 days, I stayed in camp, and then I started doing walks around. And then on the final day, I went out. So, but it was really like, it was challenging. It was painful. It's one of those things. It's not only the incision from the appendectomy, but it was, you know, the part of the story I didn't mention is that one of the reasons that the doctor wasn't so sure whether I should have the appendectomy or the antibiotics was that my response to the pain wasn't justified. In other words, I was walking around, joking around when I had a perforated appendix. Like I should have been on my back screaming. And so when they opened me up and he's like, holy crap, it's actually perforated. And that meant that they had to wash out the insides. And so my abdomen was really quite bruised and beaten up. So walking around but you know, after about 4 days, I was able to, you know, do some light hiking and climbing trees and that kind of stuff. But I needed to be super gentle. What we didn't want to have is a situation where I open up the sutures out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yes. And the dehydration.
It was quite an adventure.
All right. Having said that, he went hunting on the last day, and that was only like 5 days after the surgery, 6 days after the surgery. And when you say hunting, it's going up and down and rocks.
Yeah.
And
It's landing from the rocks. Like when you come down from the rocks, that's how I don't know how he did that.
Yeah, that's what the uphill wasn't so bad. The downhill and the moving fast. Woo-hoo.
Now, Eric will probably be able to answer this the best since he's been doing this 10 years. Let me give you, on the practical end, Eric, their insides, for lack of a better term, their ability to drink different water and eat different foods than we're used to. Again, I've been to Mexico quite a few times, but when I went on my own and went to I picked my own restaurants, I got food poisoning for 3 days and couldn't even sit up, right? How do you've been doing this 10 years. How do you navigate around that? Like the water and the food?
Some of it through sheer avoidance. That trip that I did where I did 27 miles, I didn't take water because they didn't take water. So I assumed they had a water plan. And again, it was 100 degrees outside. At around the 25 to 26 mile mark, I thought I was going to die. I mean, no water. And think about that. Running a marathon in 100-degree weather, no water. And so we get to this camp, kind of like the Maasai, but they're a local tribe called the Datoga. and we got to the Datoga tribe camp, and they have cattle. And so there was a trough with water in it where the cattle drank, and the Bushmen all got down on their knees, moved the cow slime out of the way, and then started drinking that water. And so, you know how I dealt with that to make sure that I wouldn't get sick? I didn't drink it. I just didn't drink it. I was like, I'd rather die of thirst than whatever comes out of me drinking that water. You know what comes out of that water? Some virus that goes on pandemic around the world. Right. I'm not drinking it. And so I held on until I got back to camp, and then I drank water. So there's some stuff where I'm just really extra special careful that I won't do. But the other thing I think is we have to remember that our gut biome is really the first line of our immune system, and it's actually what does our digestion for us. And one of the things that I found fascinating reading last year is there's a Tim, I can't think of his last name now, a gut biome specialist running a big gut biome biodiversity study in the United Kingdom. And he compared his own gut biome biodiversity against the test group in his study, and he found that he had greater gut biome biodiversity than anyone in his test group, probably because of his increased consciousness in it, because he was interested in it, right? Mm-hmm. But then he went and spent a week with the Hadza people, and he tested his gut biome afterward, and his gut biome biodiversity, already at the sharp end of the bell curve on a huge biodiversity, his gut biome biodiversity improved by another 30% in just a week. We have to remember that the life cycles of our gut bacteria are very short. So their breeding cycles are very fast, which means they respond incredibly quickly. And so I think that one of the things that happens when we go and spend time there and we get our hands in the soil and we immediately start changing our microbiome, and then we start eating foods with them. Like I remember the first food we had with them on this trip, well, I was really like in this weird place of I want to stick with the boys and not eat, except that when you've just had abdominal surgery, one of the things that's important is that you restart digestion. So I'm having a little beef jerky on the sly because I'm not eating in front of them because they're not eating. But then the Bushmen kill a hornbill. A hornbill is like the bird Zazu in The Lion King. Oh, yeah. And so they kill this hornbill and they boil it. You know, in the movie in Lion King, they talk about the little birdie boiler. Well, they had a little birdie boiler. They boiled that birdie, and they made birdie broth soup. And wow. Man, I was in. But that's a nice, gentle way to begin. It's not like we were eating a big piece of liver or something. We were drinking some broth, and that to me was really nourishing and kind of woke up my digestive system. So I think that, it's not quite as severe as some of the really serious stuff you'd be facing in India or Mexico. But I think that when you're there, if you take it slowly the way we did, remember that what they're eating and the way they're moving and the way they're living is much closer to 99% of your genetic history than any other way you could be living. And so it seems like our bodies tend to respond really well to the way they live. Wow. As long as you don't fall out of a tree.
Right, or drink out of the trough.
And it's amazing.
Or drink out of a cow trough.
Wow.
How no matter what they catch, they pretty much eat everything on it. On the birdie that they caught, the only thing that did not get eaten was the beak. Everything else got cooked. Everything else got eaten. So no matter what they catch, I mean, head to toe, everything gets consumed.
And genetically, how do they physically look?
Fit.
Just lean.
They're smaller than we are. They're smaller than we are. Yeah, they're smaller than we are. They're very lean. They've got very dense musculature. They're incredibly strong. They are very strong. I wouldn't want to wrestle with one of them. I couldn't even imagine. When you see the way they pull their bows back, I'm telling you, we're all three pretty good shape guys, as for our ages and respective. We go to the gym and what have you. All three of us would struggle to pull those bows back and hold it for a good shot. And these guys just all day long, they're doing that. They're so strong.
Wow. It's functional.
They really are.
Functional.
If you see the chief climb a tree.
Yeah, they never go to a gym. They're never working out with a machine. They're doing stuff that their body, needs them to do every day. And so they're in optimal condition as far as that goes. But we have to remember, they also live a really tough lifespan. Now, one thing is people do this whole, don't romanticize how their life is. They don't have very long lifespans. Well, first of all, we have no idea how long their lifespans are. I mean, I shouldn't say we have no idea, but we don't know for sure because they don't have birth certificates and so on. They don't track their age. They don't know how old they are. But the other thing is that when people say that they have an average life expectancy of about 35 years old or something like that, what people don't understand about statistics, and that's, statistics are fascinating, but they have like about a 80% infant mortality rate. So when you factor an 80% infant mortality rate into an average age, well, average age of 35, when most of them aren't even making it to one, means that many of them are living into their 60s. And there, we do see them. They just don't see the elder members of the tribe as commonly. But I certainly don't think they live frequently into their 70s and 80s like we do. I don't think that that's true at all. But again, that's not because they're not eating a great diet and exercising. It's because they live, they die of things like exposure, drought, starvation, falling out of trees, wild animals, poison arrows. They have a different set of dangers than we do.
But 40 years of joy, man, might want to look at that contract.
Yeah,
right?
like, that's the other thing, right? We may live longer, but through artificial means, we are also prolonging life. You have heart failure, you have a heart attack, you will live with medication for another 25 years, but you can't climb stairs, you can't do so many things.
Right. What's your definition?
Heart attack, they'll probably die. So you got to if you put that in context, it's not. I don't think they're any different.
And the birth, the 80% is outrageous. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, that's been human history. I mean, it's only fairly recently that we don't have that. It's been that way. I mean, that's the price we pay. Basically, humans are born about 9 months premature. Look at any other animal. Any other animal is way more functional than we are at the point they're born. A baby chimpanzee can hold on to its parents the next day. A baby zebra, we saw on our trip, we saw baby wildebeests being born, falling out of the sack beside the Jeep and then getting up and walking along and running with their parents.
Yeah, awesome.
Humans are born useless little bags of, unable to do anything because we're born 9 months early effectively, but we can't be much later than that because of the big head size. So we've found this like sweet spot of, the mother can just about handle birthing us at 9 months, but it's an incredibly dangerous process for the mother and the baby unless there's, good medical intervention around and stuff. So it's not that they have that death rate. It's that humans traditionally have had it until we figured out better ways of doing it.
That's a great input. Yeah. I didn't even fathom that. I mean, didn't even think to look at it that way. That's interesting. So when are you guys ready to go back?
What?
Well, Amazon's next, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's the Amazon. So here's where we're at is, I don't know, Dave, if you ever saw the movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy. What's that?
We're going to the Amazon?
We're going to the Amazon. Oh my God, you didn't get the memo?
No, guys, stop messing up. You crazy. We will
I'm serious. This lockdown's over. Amazon, baby. But anyway, Dave, we've got this. The movie Gods Must Be Crazy was about the Kung Bushmen in Namibia, and so we've tentatively kind of named these adventures The Guys Must Be Crazy. And our first adventure was going off to see the Bushmen, and our next one is to go and hang out with the Achua Indians and in the Amazon. And by the way, one of the things they do down there a lot is ayahuasca. I mean, who knows what's going to happen on this next trip, Ara?
Doing ayahuasca in Amazon, you crazy.
Eric's having way too much fun. He's having way too much fun.
You see, but here, Dave, here's where it gets fun. When I challenged him the first time, we're up in the first class cabin of the plane, boarding the flight. Hey, Ara, are you up for doing a week with the Bushmen? Yeah, no problem, man. Now it's like, wait a second.
There are piranhas there. There are spiders.
Piranhas? But what about the anacondas?
Yes, that too.
I just can't wait to watch you eating a capybara.
Hopefully 3 of us, 2 of us, or 1 of us will be back on the podcast after Amazon.
Dude, the odds, we're good with the odds. We're good with the odds. And I know, Vaughn, are you concerned about the showers?
No, that's the last thing now. The last thing now.
No stinking showers.
That was pure gold. He's like, I went from no shower, no food.
Just give me water.
That was pure gold. That was pure gold. But man, I mean, look at the energy. Look what talk about creating memories. I mean, that is pure gold, man. Pure gold. And luckily, in the times we're living in right now, and specifically today with the coronavirus, we recorded before we actually went on some awesome stuff. So we're going to actually edit that and share that out to the world and to our audience. And man, that was awesome stuff. So and very much enlightened me on things that I thought I had a handle on when it comes to what we're all dealing with right now and the coronavirus, and cleared a lot of things up. So I want to thank you guys for that. That was perfect timing at the universal timing.
Always together.
Yeah, always perfect timing. So keep me posted, Eric, when you take them to the Amazon, for sure.
We'll do it. We'll come back and we'll do a recap of that one for you too.
Man, that is a deal. That is an absolute deal. I want to thank you guys for taking the time and jumping on and sharing this unbelievable experience. Unbelievable experience. I mean, you guys are lit up like Christmas trees. I love it. I love it. But
Dave, I want to thank you for giving us a place to. I want to thank you for giving us a place to tell the story. I'm going to see if I can get you some photographs and stuff that maybe if you want. I don't know how you do your editing, but you might be able to overlay some of those over the stories and stuff. And Vaughn and Ara, I got to tell you, I want to thank you guys for being outstanding on that trip. It was a pleasure to share it with you. You know, it was always something I had planned to do solo, and I'm super glad to this day that I did not do that we did that together. And Ara, I just want to thank you for agreeing to go to the Amazon live here on camera. Thank you so much for that.
It's official. And thanks, Eric. We wouldn't have this experience if it wasn't for you. So very great.
Same thing, Eric. I owe you a ton. Vahan, I mean, it wouldn't be the same without you guys. But we're going to talk about the Amazon, okay? I don't think my life insurance policy covers it.
Are you still are you back on drinking coffee, or you?
That's the amazing thing. I'm down to like 1 cup when I need it. Like today, I haven't had coffee. Incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, but judging from his whole reaction to this Amazon thing, I think he's been eating a lot of chicken soup.
No, I think I need to go have a glass of wine.
He's doing the moonwalk.
Reading Jack Canfield's books and eating chicken soup.
He's gonna go.
Guys, thanks so very much. It's been a real pleasure to see you again. And Dave, it's been super, super nice to hang out with you one more time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.